Okay, welcome everybody. We're gonna call the meeting to order. So what is today? It's Tuesday, December 19th. And we will just kick off the agenda with the approval of last month's minutes. I think we had it's the exact same. I think Eric, yeah, everybody was here. So we have a motion to approve the minutes.
Michael Aronson, motion to approve the minutes from the November 28th meeting.
Bobby Bowker, I second that motion.
Any objections? No objections.
We're sure the mic's on.
Yeah.
I have a green one.
Good. And okay.
Also, do you want me to call roll?
Oh, we can do that too. See, I'm like rushing in.
But we're not.
What are the last, y'all are last. By the time the meeting's over, I'll be like, I'll work my way into the last. We could also do that. So let's do a roll call.
Eric Talbot.
Here.
Robert Bowker.
Here.
Michael Aronson. Here. Bill Maria.
Here.
Carla Elliott. Here. And Sharon Roy.
I'm here.
Thank you.
All right. Great. All right, so we'll jump right in. The first item on the agenda is 1 Van Portland Avenue. This is a request for a subdivision, an amended site approval for one of the two lots, a site plan approval for the second of the two lots, the AR approval for three multifamily residential apartment buildings. I guess before you kick off, I don't know, Valerie, is there any kind of preamble or anything that we should know going into this?
Yeah, so I just think, first of all, this particular project is going to require zoning variances. And so as a result, I think this is one of the projects where we would really want the board to review the project, get comfortable with the project, and then ultimately refer it to the ZBA. A few other things with seeker, it is an unlisted action, so we'll have to undertake some additional review in terms of seeker and then county referrals as well. But I think really for the most part, I think the initial discussion is really the overall scope of the project and get a better sense of what the board feels about this project and provide information to the applicant.
Very helpful, thank you. All right, so JB, why don't you walk us through the proposal? Okay. Oh, can we get the drawings up? Sorry.
Yes.
Well, this is existing is a 1.85 acre property. It's in the PRD district. This, you go to the next one.
Yep.
Yeah,
Next.
second sheet, yeah. This property has a long history in this area. It started, St. Augustine's Church used to be there, to be right in the corner. Then when there was an expansion of the highway, the church, part of the church went away, and that's when go back to 1980s, early 1980s, Cablevision kind of variance, and they located this building here. This is the Cablevision building. In the late 80s, when there was a lot of activity in the building from customer service, there used to be a parking lot on the top of the hill. They held 32 parking spaces. The parking lot hasn't been used in many years. And a little bit of the history of the site as well. When in the 1980s, when it was subdivided, I'm sorry, when it was actually two lots, but it was looked at as two lots. When they got the variance, the zoning board of appeals at the time decided that it was the best use. It was to have commercial on the lower level and residential on the upper level. And then when they came back, they converted all into one lot. And then in the, I guess 20 years ago, this became the new zoning part of the POD district, the San Luis district. So what we're proposing now is to subdivide the property into two lots. A smaller lot, which will keep the commercial use, which is the non-conforming use right now. And then the larger lot, which will be 1.35 acres, 1.3 acres, that will be part of the we're proposing to use that as the use that is allowed as per the zoning, which is residential, PRD district. We are proposing, there you see the two lots as we're proposing the subdivision. Lot 1 and lot 2. On the next drawing. Go one more.
Which one is lot one and which one is lot two?
Lot 1 is what we call is where the cable vision goes there. And lot 2 is where right now there's a parking lot. And what we're proposing to do is have 3 buildings, a total of 11 units. And we're trying to utilize very much where the existing pavement is, the disturbance and the existing entrance to the parking lot. That's you, 11 units are gonna be townhouses, and they're gonna be about approximately between 25 and 2,700 square feet each, 3-bedroom units. Continue down. That's a drawing of the existing building and the use is being generated right now. Right now, it's like a satellite office for the cable vision. There's a couple offices being used. They have a long-term lease, and mostly it's used for the Wi-Fi and the antenna and the reception areas.
It's mostly used for what?
I'm sorry, I'm gonna note that, yeah, we are gonna go into a public hearing later.
Okay.
So there'll be.
That'd be-
The comments and ask whatever.
Yeah, it's for, it's internet use, the antenna and the distribution of Wi-Fi for the local area. And we are located, there's 14 parking spaces. They only use like 2 offices right now. And like I said, they have a long-term lease for the use of the building. Next, please. This is a layout of the townhomes. So has each townhome will have a 1-car garage, lower living area, and their bedrooms upstairs. With the bottom. And then the elevations, there's some elevations, front elevations of the building. We haven't generated all sides yet. We have front and side. As we move along, we'll provide all 4 sides elevations. That's the typical building. And this is trying to match along with some of the multi-family residential that are across the street. Then the next drawing shows the three-dimensional some of the what we're trying to achieve in all the context that we're trying to develop the types of ways.
You have any more there? I think we can can we go back to the site plan? I think that's probably a good place to start the conversation.
Mhm.
Um,
And by the way, I did receive Paula's and Tony's comments, and then we go on through, we're working on, I want to see most of those comments.
Sure. I mean, I just have some really
Yeah.
just basic initial reactions to this. And I don't think I realized the history of the fact that this had been subdivided and then combined. Can you, as far as, I mean, try to ask a lot of questions probably all at once, but you're breaking the lot into 2, you're gonna be asking for a lot of area variances. Can we kind of like look at what degree those area variances are gonna be created by shrinking down that, at least, maybe starting on lot number 1, where you already have an existing structure, which you're not planning to make major changes to.
Right, you mean going over the variances?
Yeah.
Sure. Lot number 1, definitely gonna be, by reducing the lot, we're gonna need a variance for lot coverage and impervious area.
And
how-
also minimum acreage.
In the minimum, well, the minimum acreage, I guess we are increasing the non-conformity because the whole PRD district asks for a minimum 3 acre lots. And this is 1.85 combined.
But you are gonna be changing the size of an
Yes.
existing lot, so I
Yeah.
imagine that would
Yeah.
also be a variance, which is an important one.
There are 3 non-conforming zones on the road too.
There are 3 existing.
Yeah, non-conforming on that lot. Lot width, I think it's front yard setback. And then that's the. Yeah, front yard setback from parking lot area.
Right, and what's the parking on lot number 1?
Yeah, so you require 24 feet and there's 21.29 for the aisle width in the parking.
So the aisle width it would be a variance, but there's enough parking for the existing use?
Yes. And we can elaborate on that, but we do have a breakdown of the amount of offices that they use now. We actually are allocating for higher usage in the future.
How many years are left on their existing lease?
That I will have to find out from the client.
Is the intent to keep it the way it is, even when
Yes.
this expires?
I think they're in the process of signing the extension agreement.
And that's operating off of an existing variance, that use?
Yes,
And is that variance, do we know
The
if there are
variance-
limitations to that variance, or if they're specific?
the
to
variance was issued in 1984.
And was it, what's the usage that's falling under right now? That variance granted?
It was the use for this building.
Okay, no, I understood,
No.
but for what use specifically? Like, is that a variance that, I'm just trying to imagine what happens when Cablevision's not there.
Well, if Cablevision or when this lease ends, whether any use that you propose for the building, that they come back in front of the board for site plan approval.
Right, there is a site plan approval for Cablevision at this point in time after 1984, because we actually pulled the site plan file. And that's the reason why they need site plan amendment, because the parking that's associated with, that's only lot 2 was associated with this. I think over time, parking was developed on this site, different than the original site plan, which I believe is back in the 90s.
The original use of the cable field, remember, we all used to bring the boxes back to the place. That's when the 32 parking spaces were being used. As a matter of fact, I believe for the last few years, I don't know how long, the parking lot has been blocked off, but it's been used at all.
The upper part.
Yeah,
Well, so moving to that upper lot, in terms of access to that lot, curb cuts, is this?
it's existing.
It's all existing?
Yeah.
Have you looked into have you done any traffic studies or looked at all in terms of?
No, we haven't done traffic studies, so like I said, we should receive the comments for.
Yeah,
Response.
yeah, we added that comment as well. We thought maybe looking at where the driveway's position is, some driveways and intersections as you go further up the road.
Yeah,
Those are things we'll have to look at and see if that's the best location for that actual entrance with sight lines being analyzed as well.
But I think before we get there, I mean, because there's additional density variances that they would need as part of this, because this is technically in the PRD, it's a base density unit of 6 dwelling units per acre up to 8 dwelling units per acre, but you're supposed to have like density bonuses associated with it. And right now they're asking for a density variance above the 8 dwelling units per acre, but they're not proposing any density bonuses at this point, or they haven't identified any. So I think that's something else that this board ultimately will need to review. And then that might, depending on where you go with that, will change the site plan. So.
right, that seems like a pretty major consideration.
Are there any other considerations that we should be aware of with the PRD with respect to this project?
Well, we did, I think, there's also some minimum setbacks for
Yeah.
parking and loading. I think you noted that.
Yeah, the other one that concerns me, the other one that concerns me is the offset from the New York State DOT right-of-way line. Right now, it appears you're taking it off the roadway.
Right, because that's a lot. I guess we have to look into.
You have to look at that
right away,
because-
because that lot is a separate tax lot. it is owned by DOT, but it's not.
Yeah, if you look at the GIS maps, it looks, it basically looks like it's following a right of way line. So if you're taking 100 foot off the line, it's not 100 feet off the road, it'd be 100 foot off that, which means you'd end up like, those two buildings closest to it would be within that setback. That's something you wanna figure it out, because it is DOT property, but we're thinking it's part of their right of way line, which just bumps out in that location.
Is that shown on?
Yeah, if you zoom out,
Yeah.
you see that the property line,
Basically, it's an interpretation of what, right, where we taking the right away from.
yeah, you have to
We
make sure
look
it's
at
not.
this as being a lot that is owned by DOT, but is not part of the actually line of the right of way.
Let me zoom out a little more just to get to see that.
Yeah. If
The
we
big
need a
square box.
determination from DOT stating that, because that's how we see it, so this is the property line right here.
Okay.
And this is all, lands of the Department of Transportation. So they could technically count that as their right of way.
So that property line, that double dash is cuts through cuts through one of the lots, right?
Yeah, so
Trying to make
Yeah,
sure we're
well,
interpreting that correctly.
if this is considered the line, you're looking at 100 feet, not from the edge of the roadway, 100 feet from this line, which is.
Oh, I got
Wow.
you.
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
So that's something I think you wanna figure that
right,
out.
and we're, right, so I guess we have to reach to DOT for that interpretation, because we're looking at this as a separate tax lot owned by DOT. So in actuality, they're not gonna spend, if they spend the road that far, then, we lose some more than 100 feet there, you get a lot of property.
So sometimes they have something in
Yeah.
mind, that they were thinking maybe they'll put a turnaround or something.
Okay,
Because when you look at the GIS on the Washington County
Okay.
GIS, it shows it not as a separate parcel.
Yeah.
That's-
and going back to density bonus, we are reviewing that with the client to make sure that we're in compliance with the number in the bonuses that are required.
And that obviously seems like a big thing that we would need to understand before we could really review any of this. Other board kind of initial board comments, I know there's already a lot out there.
I actually was just wondering, is this project, subject to the affordable housing requirements?
Yes,
So,
and we will be compliant with
The rentals, right?
that. Townhomes.
but I don't
Or
know.
sale,
That I will have to burn that. Okay.
I mean, there's a lot to digest here.
And there's not much we could really do without figuring out where the DOT right away really goes, that really impacts the feasibility of your project. So I want to wait, reserve comments, so that's not.
Valerie, Tony, before I open this up to the public, is there anything else that we should touch on?
No,
we touched on the open space, showing compliance with section 270-12G. Village code states the open space of the PRD development shall be designed to the greatest extent reasonable, practicable to preserve the natural features of the site. Show compliance with that.
Okay, that's something that we would certainly need to see more clearly than anything that's shown so far.
Right, and I think also in terms of the plat requirements, besides open space, like topography, utilities, drainage, stormwater, rights of way, easements, so all that, I mean, because this is technically a subdivision application as well, so we would need to have what you normally would have on a preliminary plat.
And I'm not gonna go through all the other engineering
Yeah.
components, you really start.
To summarize, like, when I read both memos, I mean, I think that the number of units, that's something we looking hard into it. The adjacency to Route 9. Under 1 acre of disturbance, which I think we comply, but we have demonstrated that. The landscaping and the traffic. Seems like those are the things that we are.
That's a starting point, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, can we have a motion to open a public hearing on this?
Carla, do you motion to public hearing?
Or Talbot, I second.
Any objections? All right, no objections. So we're not in a public hearing. If you're here in the room and you would like to speak to this application, you can kind of raise your hand. So I see you can. So if you want to come up, just introduce yourself, your place of residence, the floor is yours.
If I could just ask one additional thing after you're done speaking, or perhaps after this matter is adjourned for the evening, if you could fill out the form there, so we make sure we have your contact information.
Sure.
Thank you.
So good evening, everyone. My name is Peter Steed. I live at 7 Murray Lane, just up the road off of Bay Portland. I have a lot of concerns about this project. I sent an email to you ahead of time. Some of you may or may not have been able to read it. If you have, I won't rehash all of that, but I'll just give the top line. So my first concern is parking. So as part of this project, you're taking a 14,000 square foot building that's existing and you're reducing it to 12 parking places per the applicant's decision or application, which seems insufficient. If in the future, either the current or other applicants need to use it as the building was designed, right? Yes, the current applicant or the current occupant is only using a few spaces. I'm not challenging that, but in the past, much more recently than the last, or at least within the last 10 years, because I've lived there, I used to drop off my cable vision box and stuff there. They used to stage equipment in the upper parking lot, repair vehicles and service vehicles. So it has been used in the past, and I can envision it being needed in the future. So to eliminate that impairs the commercial property indefinitely, right? So that's my first concern. There's not a lot of parking there on Bay Portland, all the way up to Murray Lane. It's back-to-back parking every day. So my second issue or concern is with regard to compliance with the Village Code 27012 PRD. So there's two specific variants. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not an expert in anything. I'm just a concerned citizen. But there seems to be two clauses within that code that are not being complied with, that were touched on somewhat. But the first is that to do a PRD development, you need 3 acres. This is 1.8. And once they subdivide it, it's less than that 1.3. So I saw nothing in their application that justifies that or would serve as a hardship to allow that to happen. The second, which was mentioned, is it is subject to the housing, affordable housing. And I saw nothing in their application to indicate that they were taking that into account. Listen, this is going to bring more traffic into the area. You're bringing 11 new units up to probably, 30, 40, 50 different new resident, individuals living there, and, somewhere probably 20 new vehicles. Van Portland, if you live in that area, is a nightmare in the morning. It's the only way to get up to AMD in Claremont. There's a lot of pedestrian traffic, particularly kids, putting more traffic, now putting people turning into and out of that potential development, I think is a more congestion and it's a safety risk. That is Enter Point, if you haven't seen it, is on a bit of a blind curve. So, we're just asking for trouble. We're asking for accidents. I have concerns about that. This property is zoned PRD, but it hasn't been used as that ever, right? For 60 plus years since it was with a school, church school, up to now, for the last 40 years that the applicant says it's been with Cablevision or Optimum now as a commercial building. It's never been a commercial property. So, we are talking about changing the character and use of the property. We're building 3 new 2.5-story buildings on a property that directly backs up to 2 or 3 houses and is just very different than what's there right now. So in terms of changing the essential nature of the area, we're clearly doing that, and I haven't heard anything that really justifies that from the application. Like I said, by essentially using this as a PRD at this point in time, or building something as a PRD, we are changing the nature. Effectively, even though it's zoned PRD, since it hasn't been used PRD for 60 years, we are rezoning it by now allowing residential development there. So I think that is something that we need to take into account. If you accept the fact it's never been used as a resident, and then you allow residential to be built there, then you have to accept the fact that now putting residential there is a little bit of a betrayal of what the community and the property has been used historically. Has already been said, it requires a lot of variances. So the percent of property that has building on it, particularly on the lower lot, percentage of property that is got impervious structure on it, goes up to 80 or 85%, I can't remember which. The density variance and others. And nowhere in the applicant's request did it justify any of that. Lastly, there are some environmental concerns, especially with the additional impervious structure. What does that do to stormwater runoff, unintended consequences there, density of green space to development, and essential nature of or essence of the property in the neighborhood. You know, so a lot of concerns here. I hope you guys take those all into account, and I just, you know, want to make sure that this, I'm not opposed to developing the property, but it needs to be done in I think, a responsible manner. And I don't think putting, you know, 3 new buildings and 11 residences in that little bitty space is a responsible use of development. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. T. Appreciate your input. Okay, so again, just introduce yourself, your name of your place of residence, and then you can sign in if you haven't already after you speak.
I'm Suzanne DiCillo. I live at 1 Woodland Place. I live beside the parking lot, okay? And I've lived there since Cablevision. We bought our house, it was our dream house. And the people that lived there sold their dream house, it was Cablevision. And I remember the look of somebody else named Portland Avenue, stepping out from his condominium, looking down the road and seeing the tower go up. Right, so, and he just shook his head. He didn't know what had happened. We'd like to see that gone. Okay, but anyway, so I live right beside. And as far as Cablevision goes, to me, it's they have the parking spaces, they cut the lot, and you know, cable may go the way of the telegraph. Okay, we may not. I mean, in another couple of years, we may not need cable. You'll want something else. So, but parking problems with us for the minute we moved in, the parking problems began because the other place that was built under UDC, which probably none of you know, okay, they didn't put in a parking lot, but they did put in guest parking. And I would like to see where the guest parking for this place is, because we don't want it in, you know, we're saturated. People, 2 years ago, somebody got into a fight over a parking space. And I guess it was Clover and Bridge thing. They stabbed somebody. Okay, so things get a little hot, and especially around winter time when parking spaces disappear. So it's a very hot issue. I speak for all the neighbors. It's a very difficult place. And then we're always bugging the police because, you know, they're stretched. So it's a difficult thing. So, I would like to say parking down, the building, you know, stay. But I live next door to the parking. It's not nice living next door to a parking lot. I mean, your building looks, you know, it looks beautiful. I want to move in. Okay. Right. But it's too densely populated. Okay. People are like this. And you're going to cut down trees. It's all rock up there. I mean, I'm going to have to blast. I'm going to have to, you know, it's flat.
Sorry, just a reminder, you're speaking to the board.
I mean, these are my questions because I live next door. Okay. So, and the environmental issues I'm worried about, because there is a water where the end of the hill, so that it comes down, and everybody on the hill has problems. And today, the fire department showed up across the street from the entrance to the parking lot. And it was now they call it courtroom living. The same place. And, there was a storm, and all of a sudden today, the generator right there on the road started smoking, okay? And the fire department came, and they stayed for 4 hours. And then, Con Edison showed up, and they had to pump up water from the generator. And I've seen rain come out of that button, okay? It's great. I mean, we all have some pumps, whatever, so I worry, I look at where you're placing parking lots, and I think about my backyard, okay? A tree went down in the storm. It's on the whoever owns this, and I tried to reach them, but unfortunately, they don't have a phone number. So, you know, I wanted to talk to them about the tree and the fence that's broken. Okay, so, but they're unreachable, okay? Cablevision, I could go to and talk to, but they weren't really good stewards of the land, or whatever, so. You know, so I'm, you know, like, no, not a parking lot. All my neighbors would love to see 30 spots go to Cortland Ridge or whatever it's gonna be next time, Cortland Living, and have more parking for the people in the street. It's a dilemma. I look at your plans and I see that it's crowded. Okay, there's something called a bonus room. I call it a fire truck. I want to see the fire department. Okay, that attic space. There's no exit off of that. But I'm sure that there is no legal for that. There are 3 bedrooms. That's built for children. We're now dealing with the Board of Education that says there will be 25% overpopulation in the schools. And we have to build another school. And guess where they're gonna build it? Up the top of Incourt. And where's the water come down to? My basement, right? So, we've got major problems, okay? And this whole intersection has had a lot of problems. They put in something, I don't even know what the word of this. And it's like, it's a hole detector, they up the street, they put something there that it doesn't work, okay? It doesn't work. So, you can't, just be careful. Okay? And I haven't made up my mind whether I want a parking lot or I want housing. But if you scale it back, maybe I want housing. So, thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments.
Thank you. Suzanne, would you mind signing on the sheet? Thank you.
All right, and I'll just do one check. I do see one hand up on Zoom, so Terry Rodriguez, we will elevate you to the meeting. And again, like the people in person, just identify yourself, your place of residence, and then you can speak to the project.
Okay, Terry, if you could unmute and turn on your camera.
Hello? Hi, did
Hi.
you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
How are you? Thank you. Thank you for seeing my hand up. Yeah, I'm a resident of Cortland Place as well for 23 years. I live a few houses down from Suzanne, who just spoke, and I am very concerned with this project. I chose to move to this neighborhood 24 somewhat years ago because I love the safety and the freedom that it allotted my children. I see a lot of new children running around this neighborhood today, and it brings me great joy. The safety that these children have, it's a dead-end street here on Cortland Place. Allowing this project to proceed is concerning for on many levels. We have, of course, like everybody has mentioned, the traffic concern, the parking concern, the foot traffic has me concerned. And I think it's something that I really hope that it can be reconsidered. Another big concern that I have, people, and I sent a email, hopefully you received it, is what this type of construction can possibly do to the backyards of those of us that face our backyards are against Highland. Because if you understand the landscape back there, it's a slope. And I am very concerned that there can be shifts in land that can cause some landslides, wall collapses like they did on 80 Main Street a few years back. Every now and then, we've had trees that have fallen. Like Suzanne mentioned, I just saw a tree that shifted because of the storm. Back in 2022, maybe I'm going to think around COVID. I had a huge tree that fell in between on the other side of my fence, because that land back there is just really uneven, unstable, and probably a concern. So any construction that can be happening that can affect, whether it's vibrations, whatever it is, I'm concerned to what it could possibly do that can affect all of us that live on the, let's call it the west side of the street where the yards are on a slope. I hope that what I'm saying is clear. Again, I am not a professional. I'm just a concerned citizen. I've been here for 24 years, and I think it's going to definitely change the landscape of the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. All right, so I think we had, yeah. Oh, we are, sorry.
Hi, how are you?
Very good. Come on up. I apologize.
Just one thing to add. My name is Colin Ribbon. I live on Murray Lane, right off of Van Cortlandt.
Sure.
A couple doors down from Pete. One thing that we didn't address yet is there's talk of building another building, another school on Van Cortlandt, and then putting a throughfare to Stormytown Road, which is a disaster in and of itself. I mean, currently the situation there is dangerous. Children have been hit by cars. There's been attempted abductions of children. It's a lot of traffic already. I know that the teachers have no place to park, even at the schools. They park all the way down every street that they can possibly find. So that was my only concern too. And in addition to this, then we got to think about a second school behind AMD, and then cutting through the Stormytown Road. That whole plan just boggles my mind to begin with, right? Because that's just a very dangerous winding road to begin with on Stormytown. So if you combine that with this, I think it's an absolute disaster. So I wanted to say around that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right there. Sure.
So I do see, yeah.
Hi.
For sure. Come on up.
I'm Karen Court. I live at 17 Murray Lane, with my fabulous neighbors. I don't want to rehash, but pretty much the common threads here: parking, traffic. I've had the village manager put on no parking here to the corner on the end of Murray Lane because there's already not enough parking for the school staff, and they're all on Murray Lane up and down Van Cortlandt. When you come out of our street, it's like playing Frogger. So when you add a new development with more cars, it's just going to be more of the same. I see children walking up and down. We tried to get a crosswalk. They said you can't do that because there's no sidewalk on our side. You know, we've tried to come up with different things to make it safe for pedestrians. I've had my kids walk and had cars flying up the street, going onto the sidewalk, and then around the kids. I mean, as Colin said, there's gonna be a new school. It's just, I don't think it's responsible. I don't, you know, I guess as Peter said, like, I'm not opposed to something happening on that site, but I don't think that this is the right thing for the neighborhood.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll double check, make sure there are no other hands in the room. Okay. And I'll do one more check on Zoom, and I don't see any other hands on Zoom right now. I don't think this will be the last time to speak to this application. But so I think at this point, can I get a motion from the board to adjourn the public hearing?
Eric Talbot, make motion to adjourn public hearing.
Bobby Backer, second the motion.
Any objections? No objections. I think you guys have heard a lot. I think, you know, before we can even really get into, you know, declaring lead agency or doing anything on this project, I think we need a lot more information. And then we'll see where that stands. And the public feedback also echoes a lot of the ideas that have already been thrown around by the board. So we'll see where you go. All right. Thank you. We had given a motion to adjourn the application for tonight.
Michael Aronson, motion to adjourn the application.
Carnegie, a second motion.
Any objections? All right, no objections. That carries. We are now going to move on to the next item, which is item B of the agenda, Planning Board 17/2023. This is Briarcliff Drive South. Are you ready? I'm looking at the wrong thing. I'm like, this is from last week. I got it. Planning Board 19/2023. If I can get my paper straight. This side of the folder, but I'll do that again. And all right, so this is a request for a final subdivision and amended site plan approvals, for the Water Street development, extension of the wetlands permit and the tree removal permit, and all for the construction of mixed-use building and site construction. So, we have the applicant.
We do, we got a whole team.
Good evening, Chairman and members of the board. I'll start. My name is Jim Wendling. It's nice to be before you guys again. It's been a little bit of excuse me, a little bit of time. I'm joined by Chris Hahn from WBP and Rich Williams from Insight Engineering. Before Rich walks through the changes on the plans, I just wanted to give you guys a brief update. It's been some time since we've been before you. Since the last time, we now have a executed brownfield cleanup agreement, which is a big accomplishment and took a while to get there, but that was a big step in this process. We are at the 1 yard line with Con Ed, nearly done with our 2 years of negotiations and discussions with Con Ed, but we're wrapping up. We have a call this Friday, and I think we'll be done probably with them in the next couple weeks. We are working with H on a closing slot for 2024 to be able to break ground. On these tax credit deals, you have to work with the state and they slot you in for closing. So we're making good progress on that. And since we've last been before you, we've been plowing ahead on the design of the plans, the construction plans, looking to file in the next 30 days for a building permit, and also the plans on the Greenway extension. And as the plans have evolved over the past 6 to 8 months, some of the changes that we're going to talk about tonight became evident as we worked through the details and the coordination. So we think they're all improvements. We're really excited about making a lot of progress over this past year and getting into the ground in 2024. And with that, I will turn it over to Rich, and then we will answer any questions you have. But Rich will go over the changes. So, Rich.
So good evening again. My name is Rich Williams. I'm with Insight Engineering, site civil engineers for the project. And as the board recalls, we'd previously received approvals for site plan, preliminary subdivision with extensions, a wetland permit, tree removal permit, density bonus, conditional use permit, and BAR approvals for the project. And I see that you've shared your screen, so I'm going to do my best to walk you guys around numerically to highlight some of the changes that, as Jim mentioned, we've been working on since we last left you. We believe that these changes are all fairly minor in nature. We also are excited about a lot of them because we think particularly at the entrance to the site, there are going to be some enhancements. But just starting and working our way in clockwise, the very first thing you'll see, which is in blue, is the outline of the parking garage. There was some very slight modifications to the overall size of the parking garage, slight enough where if you look closely, you'll see the black line underneath, but you really have to zoom in and look for it. Those slight changes are a result of the structural design and just the final wall dimensions. So again, it does change a little bit, but it's almost barely noticeable. The next is the parking striping along Central Avenue. What you'll see is we've restriped that, picking up one additional parking space along Central Avenue. And the reason for the restriping is as we work through the structural design of the parking garage and the heights from floor to floor based on the final design of the structural members, we had to shift the entrances to levels 2, 3, and 4 along Central Avenue to work with the floor to floor heights and structural design of the building. Which brings me to our next change. You can see from black to red, the level 2, level 3, and level 4 entrances have all changed slightly. And again, if the board remembers, there are no internal ramps. Each floor does have its own individual entrance, which is why the entrances shift as we change the floor to floor height. The next change is there was a set of stairs on the bottom side of the parking garage, page down, which was exterior to the building and kind of intruded in some of that plaza space. We were able to relocate those stairs internal to the building, which we think will make for just a little bit more of a wide open space. Also, as a benefit, will give the fire department a little bit more accessibility as they go to turn onto the bridge should they ever need to. The next change on the parking garage, if we just stay there, is there's a retaining wall on the fourth level. That's the entrance that curves into the site. That's our top floor of the parking garage. What we've done is we modified the retaining wall. Instead of being along the outside curve of the entrance, it's going to come along the outside curve and then move to the inside curve. And part of that, part of the ramp is actually going to be on a pier or elevated in the air. That's going to allow for less fill, less ground disturbance, and a little less overall disturbance at the site. Just noteworthy to mention, because I know we spent a lot of time talking about trees during the original approval process. None of these changes result in additional tree removal. So we're at the same tree removal we previously were. The other thing to mention is, Jim, I believe the first floor is going to contain the 45 parking spaces for the village now. Yeah, Jim's nodding, that's correct.
Yeah,
Yes, we discussed that with the village board as well. The 45 for a few different reasons, but the upshot is the 45 public parking spaces are now on the first floor, which we think is better for both from a management and operations point of view for our building, and better for the public to be on the ground floor as well.
And if the board remembers, we previously talked about when they were on the fourth floor, some of the spaces were commingled. We had just a handful of spaces that were going to be for residents in addition to public. So that's what Jim's really referring to with respect to the management side of it. Now all the public can be on its own floor, which was something we actually talked about during the original approval. The next change is we added a play area behind our building. That was done for a couple of reasons. One, it's typical in WPP developments where they will have a small jungle gym or play area, jungle gym set. That area is also, it's a requirement of HCR and the state funding. The area is accessible. It is ADA accessible. It's usually a rubberized surface that meets ADA requirements and also has the proper fall protection. So that's the added play area. Again,
is that an amenity space or is that a publicly accessible play area?
That will be a publicly accessible area.
Thank you.
Yes.
If we scroll down the page, we had some slight modifications to the retaining walls as we get into final slope designs. As a result of that, we had some shifts in the, you'll see the red arrows versus the black arrows, That's some shifts in, door locations as we just finalize internal spaces. Next change, the bridge. So if we recall, we had a connection on one of our upper levels that spanned over the slope and reached Main Street. We just, as part of doing final design and citing that, and again, the structural design of the building and the floor to floor heights, we had to shift that bridge location down a little bit so that it aligned with our floor elevation to Main Street and again was level and accessible. So there was a slight shift there. We modified the loading area slightly, just opening up a little bit more space for vehicles. We reconfigured some of the parking underneath the building. It resulted in us being able to pick up an extra parking space. And again, that ties to us being, providing some of the handicap spacing inside the garage. And then the last two changes really along the front side of the project. We've developed the concept for the entrance to the building and how it interacts with the plaza. And also based on the elevations of the building and getting out of the floodplain, we believe we can create a series of steps, which will lead you up into that commercial space, give you a place to sit and enjoy a cup of coffee. At the same time, we've also been able to create an ADA accessible ramp, which is on the downhill side of the page. So again, that's just going to create more of a grand entrance into the building, help kind of break the sidewalk promenade under the building from the public space, from people walking up to the greenway or from the greenway to the train station. So we're excited about that and how it's going to look. And then the last thing was there was a very slight shift in the entrance to the parking garage. Just as a result, again, of the final building layout, structural columns and things like that. So again, we believe these are all pretty minor, but we had to come before you for final subdivision approval, which is one of the things we're here before you tonight. So we thought it was a good time to catch back up, review everything we've been working on. Last, with respect to our subdivision, we did make application to the Westchester County Department of Health for subdivision approval. They've reviewed our application. They have no more comments, but they don't actually issue a subdivision approval in this case. So what they do, and I believe that has to do with it being a non-jurisdictional subdivision. So what they do is they review our application and tell us when they're ready to sign the plat. They have indicated they're ready to sign the plat. So the reason I bring that up is obtaining Department of Health approval was one of our conditions of preliminary. Unfortunately, we've taken it as far as we can go with them in the process at this point, and they're ready to sign the plat when we get it to them. So that's part of the reason why we filed for our final subdivision application at this time.
Thank you, Rich.
Thank you. Valerie, can you just kind of walk us through any other
Yeah.
pieces that we should be?
Yeah, so I'll just walk you through, basically, I guess, the procedures for tonight, or for whenever the board wants to take action. First of all, this project has already received a negative declaration on July 26, 2022. None of the site plan changes that they're proposing will exceed any thresholds that were evaluated under seeker. So you can reaffirm your negative declaration for seeker. The site plan, the applicant is here for both site plan approval and final plat subdivision approval. And both of those will require public hearing, which I know you'll probably undertake tonight. The applicant did provide a final plat, and it's substantially similar, or it is similar to the preliminary plat. Also, in terms of the applicant also needs an extension to the wetlands permit, which was the original application was approved on December 20th, 2022. So you will need, they'll need a 1-year extension for that. They'll also need a renewal for the tree removal permit. And then the Board of Architectural Review does not need any new approvals. That stands. And then the last is the applicant did receive zoning variances for some of the further proposed site plan changes, which really specifically focused on the parking space size for a couple parking spaces. And they received that variance on December 12th, 2023. And normally we will have you refer over to the ZBA, but that particular one, Joe, the building inspector felt that it was minor enough to just have them go right to the ZBA.
Board questions?
I mean, there are no changes to the existing facade, the design plans that we originally approved based on I think you were talking about the entrance was slightly modified to the building.
Right, in terms of the building facade, design, layout, unit count, no changes at all. As Rich was talking about, the entrance to the commercial space with a few steps, we think it's actually a much better entrance to that area. But to answer your question directly, no changes to the building or the design intent of it.
Okay, thank you.
And I know that, I think Rich, you touched on it during your presentation, but none of these modifications have changed the tree removal plan, and that all of those components stay identical.
That's correct.
There
It appears to be very minor changes that I think are net benefits to the project. I'm okay with what you guys presented. Thank you.
I would agree.
I agree. Great. Yeah, I mean, the project has been developed, and these are just kind of the science of-
process.
Yeah, exactly. This is the fine tuning good work. So, can I have a motion to open up a public hearing on the site plan and subdivision?
Bobby Bowker making a motion to open for public hearing.
Michael Aronson, second.
Any objections? All right, is there anybody here in this room to speak to this application tonight? Don't see anybody raise their hands. If there's anybody on Zoom who would like to speak to this application, you can use a hand raise function. And I do not see any hands. Okay. I think based on where we are, can we see can we have a motion to close the public hearing?
Michael Aronson, motion to close the public hearing.
Any objections? All right, no objections. So the public hearing is closed. So Valerie just outlined the steps that we need to take. I think the first piece before we can do anything would be to reaffirm the negative deck. So if we could have a motion to reaffirm the previously issued negative deck.
Bobby Bowker making a motion to reaffirm previously approved negative declaration.
Carly, do you second the motion?
And a roll call.
Okay, Eric Talbot,
Aye.
Robert Bowker,
Aye.
Michael Aronson, aye, Phil Maria,
Aye.
Carla Elliott, aye, and Sarah Roy.
Aye, very good. So that motion carries. And then I think we can do one motion at this point then for the remaining items. So that's the site plan, amended site plan approval, the final subdivision approval, and then the extensions to the wetlands and the renewal of the tree permit.
Right, and I think, for when we vote, I think Stuart, the Corporation Council would prefer to have two separate votes for subdivision as well as site plan, because I'll do a resolution for both subdivision and site.
All right, so and then how about, so
The tree into the home rolling under the
Site plan.
site.
okay, very good. So we'll start then with subdivision.
Michael Aronson making a motion for the final subdivision approval.
Eric Talbot, I second.
And roll call.
Eric Talbot,
Aye.
Robert Bowker,
Aye.
Michael Aronson,
Aye.
Carla Elliott, aye, Phil Maria,
Aye.
and Sarah Roy.
Aye, very good. Motion carries. And then we go on to the site plan, wetlands, and tree removal.
Bobby Bowker making a motion for final approval of site plan and extension of the wetland and tree removal permit.
Carla, do you second motion?
That's correct. And we'll do a roll call.
Eric Talbot,
Aye.
Robert Bowker,
Aye.
Michael Aronson,
Aye.
Phil Maria,
Aye.
Carla Elliott, aye, and Sarah Roy.
Very good. Motion carries. Thank you. We're all set. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you. Happy
Thank you
holidays.
very much. Happy holidays.
You too. Okay. All right. So we're gonna move on now to planning board 11/2023. It's new business. This is 142, 144 South Highland Avenue. And this is for the Popeyes restaurant. So applicant is here. You guys can give us an update in terms of where you are right now.
Good evening, Chairman Roy and members of the planning board. My name is Clifford Davis, counsel for the applicant Popeyes. We're seeking bar and the site plan approval. We went to the ZBA. There were two sets of issues at the ZBA. The ZBA granted us a variance regarding the 2-foot setback from the northern driveway, that's the property line. As to the sign variances, we asked that it be separated from this application, and we're going to be going back to the ZBA. There was an issue as to what they would allow us on the third facade. The code permits signs on 2 facades, and we were looking to have the chicken logo, just the chicken logo allowed on the third facade, but we were going to take off Love That Chicken, which was 113 square feet. So we still have to go back from them, but we're hoping that we can set that aside. There was an issue about an easement because on the northern driveway, because we went over the property line a little, we redrafted that, so it won't be necessary. I gave Taryn and I had sent to Jamie this morning language for the pipe and the stormwater structure easement. I hope that that won't be an issue. I'm just following the language that the board and the village engineer had recommended. We previously had provided the elevations. With me tonight is a Star Kip of Creighton Manning, our traffic consultant. I believe, although I'm not positive, that our engineer, Anthony Stankinelli of Renesis Engineering, is on Zoom. Is he there?
Sure.
Okay, he's there. That's good. So we're here to answer any and all questions. We hope that we could get an approval tonight on the site plan and the bar, subject to, conditional approvals. And I guess the public hearing had been adjourned. So subject to what happens, we would ask that the public hearing be closed at that time. Hopefully, perhaps we can get approvals tonight. So we have our consultant here. So we're here to answer any questions.
Okay, and do we have the colors?
Peter.
Yep.
So,
Oh, okay. Mr. Rosillo, I'm bringing you over as well.
Right, so, and I know, and Valerie, I mean, since the last time we discussed this, I know that we've had, the village, has brought in an independent reviewer to look at the traffic study, and to comment on it, so I believe we have,
Right, we
That-
have Peter
Peter's,
here,
okay.
right, and if you want, he can give maybe a little bit of, his thoughts on the traffic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is Pete Rosillo from Colliers. Um, Looking at the latest set of comments that we had, it appears that Creighton Manning has basically responded to all of them, but there were still some concerns that we had. And it's been mentioned in the Kellard's sessions memo as well, is that we still have to hear from the DOT on this. There's, I'm not quite sure that they'll agree with the two driveways, one being two-way, the other being single exit only. The geometry doesn't really fit the standard state for a minor commercial, which is the minimum is like 22 feet. The driveway here is identified as 20 feet. There's also something that I don't think was mentioned before in looking through the comments was I'd be interested in knowing how the waste is handled, how that tracks into the site, because the state is not going to want to allow a waste truck to stop on the road and then back into the site to service the dumpsters. So that should probably be investigated. We still, if there was possibly a way of putting angle parking, making the driveway one way, that would sort of would help. Although we still see that there's no bypass lane, so that's still a bit of a consideration. The other part that we hadn't mentioned is that the grand opening of these facilities tend to be chaotic. And we would recommend having some form of a traffic management plan in place for that. And that would last, a certain amount of time that, of course, the village can decide on that, but we would suspect it would have to be at least for a couple of weeks. That would be implemented when there is an issue out there. And that may be something as simple as, the off-duty police coming in and assisting with the movement of traffic on the public road. I think also, although there's an existing driveway, we should probably have sight lines completed to the north and south from each of the driveways, just to make sure that there's no vegetative obstruction coming out and or even building obstruction, because these sight lines are usually measured 14.5 feet back from the travel way. So that's going to be important in this case here as well. So I think that, by and large, the traffic study responded to through the iterative process all our comments that we had in terms of levels of service and trip generation and counts. But I think these last few issues, and particularly getting the DOT input, is most important at this stage.
Thank you. Board questions on that feedback?
Would you like our consultant?
Yeah, please, sure.
You don't want me to.
For the record, Stark Kibb with Creighton Manning Engineering, licensed engineer and traffic consultant for the application. Peter, thanks for the comments. We are aware about the DOT. They've been very slow on every application for them right now. It's just something that everybody's dealing with. But we are trying to get their feedback. Regarding garbage, I think we'll look into that. Angle parking, as you highlighted, Peter, the site is just too tight to afford a bypass lane. That's why we haven't been able, trust us, we looked into it. I know Anthony's team from Phronesis, they looked at some various site plan iterations that tried to allocate room for a bypass lane, but they just couldn't get it to fit.
Can we put the site plan up there? So when we're talking about that, that's be helpful to people if that's where it's okay.
And I don't think we won't see the iterations on this, but you'll see. Maybe just go back up.
Yeah, that's the
three,
first.
go right there. Yeah, this is probably fine. So you can see that there is room for the 2 ordering points, but as far as getting space to allow for the bypass lane to continue around the building, it's just too tight. Traffic management plan, we can certainly look into that. As Peter had mentioned, maybe it's something just kind of a contingency plan. It doesn't mean that we activate it when the store opens, but if there's a problem, then maybe say the next week or as soon as possible, get it activated. So we'll look into that. As for sight lines, we can look at it. I know from experience with the road, I drove it every day, to and from work. It's a relatively straight road, but there's a substantial grade up, but it's consistent. So there's no vertical curve that really gets in the way of sight lines. And then the sidewalks on the west side of South Highland Avenue, it's sidewalk and then usually a paved or some kind of concrete buffer space. So as far as vegetation being in the way, I don't think there's a real concern. But if the board is really expressing that concern, we can look at sight lines, but I don't think it's gonna yield any negative results. And I think that addresses your comments, Peter. Thanks again for providing those. And then as Cliff mentioned, I can answer any questions that you guys have.
I just might mention that, Stark is correct. The state is extremely slow in responding. I appreciate his position there. And I only mention the sight lines primarily because it seems every application that we've put in front of the state, they've always asked for sight lines. And it just may be something that they stick in the draw to complete their review process. And so I anticipate that they would be asking for that anyway.
So that is correct. Sorry, I know what Peter's alluding to is that if the state makes us pursue a highway work permit for any work within the right of way, one of the stages in that application process does require site distance to be conducted. So if we go down that path with the DOT, if they make us actually get a highway work permit for the work in the right of way, then it will be done eventually. But again, if you see that it's necessary, we can absolutely look at it.
One of the comments that came up, and I don't think we really looked at it, if Peter brought it up, you responded to it, just as far as the trash removal is concerned and how that would be impacting, I guess, getting a truck into and out of the site, especially given where that is. So I don't know if one of you just wants to just kind of walk us through that sequence.
I would think, and maybe Anthony can jump on if possible, but I believe the goal would be, or the plan would be to have garbage removal being done during off business hours. So when the store is closed, so that the parking spaces on site are available for the vehicle to turn around on site. I think that's the intention. I'm not sure if Anthony's prepared any like auto turn templates or anything to exhibit that, but we can investigate it to give a more clear answer.
What are the hours of the business again?
I have it in my board notes.
I have in my notes, the applicant indicated the hours of operation proposed are Sunday through Thursday, 10:30 a.m. to 11 p.m. and Friday through Saturday, 10:30 a.m. to 11:30 p.m.
Right.
Okay.
So traffic pickup can be done prior to that, 'cause usually it's in the morning, right?
Yeah, we want to do it in the morning, but also like we want to make sure that it's done, say when staff is minimal, you might want to have one staff member there to help if something's going on, but that way those spaces stay open.
Yeah. But it would be important to see that the truck can get in and out of there without having to like back up traffic on Route 9 at, 9:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
I have a comment, and it's looking at the site plan and thinking about my experience in going to fast food establishments. It's lopsided, but it's asymmetrical in the fact that usually typically on establishments, there's the bypass lane on the side of where the pickup windows are, right? So that, that you don't have a traffic jam. What I see really problematic about this, and I know that you're far along this design, but I just kind of challenge you to think about this. Looking at the size of the building, it's not a particularly large building. I don't know if it has to be that shape. And if it were a different shape, could you realign the parking and the circulation to make it more logical, because when I look at those parking spots there, and I think people are coming at, they're making a left, then there's other people coming out on the right. They're shifting, they're veering left to the far left to go to one pickup window, others are going right. When someone backs out and they go to go right, if they're backed in, if they're parked right there and now there's a line of traffic behind them, they're never getting out. And then how are they gonna get, and then there's 2 lanes of traffic behind them. And then how are they gonna get back out that entrance? They're gonna have to wait there to go around on the other side. I think it looks like, I don't know. It doesn't look like a place that I would want to go to, in terms of getting stuck, you know, and I think probably when traffic is not, you know, at the max, it won't be an issue, but when you have a lot of people there, I just don't see how. We've had a few projects recently where I'm like, I don't know how the parking is gonna work, and I don't know that it's our job as a board, it's not our job as a board to tell you how to design the parking, but it has to work. And I mean, that's all I have to say. So I think it works.
I don't know what he's talking about, so I'm gonna might as well ask the question so it's clear in my mind. Those parking spaces that are perpendicular to the building, how do they exit? Is that
They
one
have to
way?
go through
Do
the
they have to
bypass
go
lane.
through the,
They have to
They
go out
would
the
back,
entrance.
they would back up
Oh.
from their space, and then they would go out the entrance to what
Yeah,
is the northern
I
entrance,
just-
which is screened, right?
back
I just
where
don't
they
see
can
it
go?
as ever working
Yes, that's a
in a
full
good
way.
way.
You kind of want a second lane where the drive-through window is.
No,
And
you
then
know,
you have that one
no
way instead of backing
criticism
out.
of like, you know, like a fast food or anything, but it doesn't make sense about how people are gonna circulate. and move.
No, points out a very good point, because you guys want the place to be as busy as possible, and so it's gonna be a problem that hopefully you're gonna have to.
So we
watch out
did
prior
look
to
at,
going.
as part of the traffic study, we did look at an operational Popeyes that has the dual ordering points. It was up at Half Moon. And they had a queue, the longest queue that we observed there, I believe it was in lunchtime, I think it was 12 vehicles. So with this configuration, I think that the capacity of the driveway is 11. So you will have that potentially have 1 vehicle that could back up there into that space, but that was only for 2 15-minute intervals, so over 30 minutes during that lunch period.
In this illustration, the lead car is at the takeout window,
Correct, yes.
and you said that's 11 cars there?
I believe it's 11.
It's all in.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all in.
Right, but a 12th car certainly blocks a spot, and then, you know, if it's for whatever reason, you know, I don't know the size of that community versus Austin, if that's even comparable or
Yeah,
not.
so it's unlikely the handicap spots would ever be blocked because there's not enough room to come in on the right
No.
and then squeeze into the entrance if it's packed already to get onto that second line. I guess it's just kind of having the second drive-through really makes it a variable about how many cars are you gonna actually have in the parking lot at any given time when people are parked in those spaces.
Right, and what decision do you make, which lane you're
How
gonna
those people
choose?
get out. It may not be fit, they might have to wait for a long time, but I could see people getting a little agitated perhaps, but I don't know.
Well, especially if
That's
there's
the only
more
way out for it.
cars back.
Because you don't know how to get out.
They can't go around past the drive-through
Right,
and get out.
yeah, you can't get out of there.
And if they can't back up from the parking spaces because people are double lined.
Exactly, they're behind.
Drive-through, how, yeah.
And it doesn't mean that the cars are always those cars are very tightly Tetris together. In reality, right, you've got somebody at the window, you may have, you know, the next car may be all the way up at the pickup window. That's showing a lot of cars that have already ordered and are waiting.
Yeah.
Even a single one, all the way to the right is gonna impede cars backing up in those spaces. That makes,
Well, I
you
think we have
don't need two lines to do that. Just a single line on the far right would impede cars from backing out to get out of the space.
Especially if those cars are parallel next to them.
Once the parking lot's packed and you have to do a multi-point
So,
turn, but. you
12
can do that.
cars doesn't even make it.
What?
And
What is
these
our-
cars on the side don't count.
What does Peter have to say about this?
Well, it's, you know, looking at the data, as Stark mentioned, it's very close to it, even if you refer to ITE, or the Institute of Transportation Engineers, estimates, it's within that envelope. And again, you're probably gonna have occasions where that does happen. It may be an occasion where a person can't get into that most northerly space, or I guess technically westerly space, um, closest to the on the far side, because if the queue does back up, they won't even be able to get in there to park. Maybe that last space or the next to last space can't even be functioned. But again, the data shows that this is probably very close to what you would typically find. I'm not as concerned about backing up and having it exceed the 11 or 12 spaces. The whole point of the bypass is strictly that you want to get out of there, and there's no way of doing it once you're in that queue. And that in itself is sort of is an issue for us. And I mentioned if there was a way, I think one of the board members mentioned, reconfiguring the building. If you were to go with angled parking, you'd have a one-way system. And I don't know, I know they all have prototypes, and there may not be a narrower prototype that they have for the site that would fit within the yard requirements. But I'd like to just see that investigated, if there was a way of creating a system that was a one-way system with a bypass. To me, it would just function so much better than what is proposed at this point.
Thanks, Peter.
Yep.
And just one, I guess, kind of related question too. So we talked a lot at the top about how many parking spots there were. And I know there's a division amongst employee versus kind of whatever customer parking. What was that ratio? That you guys recall, or?
For the parking requirements?
Yeah, just, and I guess where I'm going with that is, is there a way for any of those parking spots to be, presumably some people park there will be employees.
Space.
Right, right.
I don't recall the requirements off the top of my head.
You can't see that, huh?
So,
12
Right.
seats, 4 employees.
Okay, so mostly the parking will be used for employees, yes.
right.
We can
Half and half that.
What is the requirement?
Right.
But I would agree with Peter's.
It's half and half.
4 employees, 4 employees, 4 per guest.
I don't know that all 4 of those spots you would want to have, blocked off, but if any of the, the two
Westerly too.
westerly 2 or something like that, that might help with that problem.
No, we spent time talking about it months ago in the last met, since there's 2 egress points on the property, are we doing a right turn only? Are we allowing a left turn out of the property?
We are proposing to have them both be full movement driveways for egress, so left and right.
Left and right. Okay, that's a concern of mine, obviously. That's a very busy road, especially during your peak hours. Right turn only, especially since there's 2 egress points, will definitely, alleviate some of the traffic and tension already on that road.
Okay. I know that we did look at.
And that also expedite the exit from the property, because making a left turn out of there when it's slammed, forget about it. You might be there for 15, 20 minutes. Those 12 cars, that hypothetically could be there, might be 18 to 20 cars. Because it would take you so long to make a left out of there.
So we did, the analysis we provided, does look at the site driveways and at the operations of those driveways. And it did find that the driveways operate at a very acceptable level of service. One of Collier's comments was about lefts in at the driveway. And we discussed that in the revised study. We provided a second revised study. Just speaking again on operations, how there's the added bike grid, there is a kind of a de facto bypass lane for vehicles passing. And the adequate sight lines that we spoke on earlier tonight.
Peter, can you speak on that question?
Yeah, well, you have the 2 lanes in the northbound direction, so that effectively gives anyone that is waiting to turn left into the site there is a means of getting around them. It would be a real concern if you didn't have those two lanes. So I don't, that isn't for me. And again, you're not talking about a high generation here. You know, and there's probably sufficient gaps in traffic. I heard a comment about the exiting. Again, if you're turning left out of the site, you basically have a choice of two lanes to turn into. And you'd likely turn into the inside lane. And again, you could take a look at the gaps that are available if that would make the board feel more comfortable. I'm sure Stark can, he has numbers, counts in this area. He could figure out what the gaps are and what the length of the gaps are. A left turn out here, you'd probably need, maybe 6-second gaps. Anything bigger than 6 seconds would probably be sufficient, 6 to 7 seconds. And you could see in the course of an hour how many gaps of that length you have, which probably far exceed the number of cars that will turn left out. If that would make the board feel more comfortable, that's something that can be done. Other than just the capacity, which he's mentioned, shows that it operates satisfactorily. So I'm not that as concerned about the turning movements in or out of the site.
I think it would be helpful to have that, and I know that when we've spoken to the public on this, or heard from the public on this project, that's been a major concern as well.
Mhm.
Yeah, I second that because I know that area very well and the traffic that is going to be horrendous. Now, can you limit the exit not to make a left and just the entrance you could, because you have two lanes traveling south. If you limit north, not making a left, at least you alleviate a little bit. La Placita is a lot smaller, and let me tell you, the traffic there is crazy with people trying to move around.
Yeah. Well, I think,
I'm very uncomfortable with this project specifically for that situation. It is just going to create a jam-packed network.
so in the southbound direction, and forgive me, I just wanted to maybe just clarify this, that the southbound direction is only the one lane of traffic, and it would only be rights coming into the site, whereas northbound would be the lefts, and they have the two lanes.
Okay.
Which is what we're speaking on. We can look at, I just don't know if we're gonna be able to really restrict movements lefts and rights out of the site, on how people would then navigate back north. If they're passing the site, say, a lot of traffic that's associated with these kinds of uses is passed by traffic, so they're left work south, they're heading north to the house up in the village. They want to pull over, grab dinner, and then they're going to keep heading north back up there. They would have to circulate around. I guess you'd be pushing more traffic, say, to State Street down Acton, or sorry, Spring Street. Yes, it does. And we account for a little bit of that traffic, but we're considering the majority of the traffic to be using South 9.
But I think to Peter's point, looking at what those gaps are, I mean, if we're gonna be, asked to just taking, to prove this, we would have it, have that data and really understand what that means. And I don't know if that data is, I don't know if those gaps are like per hour and, based on the time of day. So,
well, we
care
would
less about 11 to 12 than we do about, 5
Yeah.
to 7.
We would probably look at the peak hours that we had already found, and then we'll analyze those time periods and find the gaps for those periods, just to kind of help focus the effort.
Yeah, I appreciate all the work you're gonna do on it, and textbook data is definitely needed, it's what we have to go by, but real data, I drive that road every day, and, I don't think the textbook examples translate to really what goes on in the ground there. That's a heavily trafficked area, there's a big multifamily apartment building right across the street. It merges from one lane to 2 lanes, it's just, other municipalities have done it, they've, made other projects have right turn only outside of the development site. So it's not uncommon to be done, but just flush it out, get the gaps for us. I think it'll be beneficial to see that, alleviate some of the concerns people may have.
It looks like
I would second that, Bob.
It looks like Anthony, from their team.
Oh,
has
yeah, no, of course. And you're Anthony, so you're allowed to speak and you're part of the meeting either way. So go for it. Thank you for raising
Hey
it.
guys, how is everybody tonight? I'm sorry I couldn't be there. Just listening in, I just wanted to bring up a few points regarding some of the questions. We would absolutely love a bypass and totally agree with everyone. Unfortunately, after 10 different concepts, it doesn't fit. This is one of Popeye's smallest buildings. There's not many other options. Every other option that we tried was worse. Unfortunately, in order to get the Popeyes there, we need to give up the bypass. We've tried every which way. We're more than happy to send the 10 plus concepts that we did to everyone. Regarding the, the entrances and the left turns out and that, I mean, that's really going to be up to the DOT. It's an existing condition already, right? We have right-ins, we have full movements out of the curb cuts. We're not changing the curb cuts. Those exist today. And I just want to remind everybody there that there's more than 4 or 5 plus uses at this site now. We are not by any means making any conditions worse, right? We understand that there is heavy traffic. We understand that apartments across the street, but Popeyes coming in there is not going to hurt traffic. It's not going to hurt anyone. So it's actually an improvement for the site. We are creating nice big residential buffers and plantings in the back to the residents, which I've heard from the ZBA and other people that the residents are happy about. The residents, a lot of them are supportive of this application. I even heard some of the people on the ZBA, they can't wait to come for lunch. So I just want to remind everybody, we are, we're leaving the existing curb cuts. We are setting the building back further than it exists today. Right now, the existing building is right on the property line. It's 1.5 stories. Again, I can't even name all the uses that are in that building now. This is a big improvement. We've exhausted every option for this layout. There's nothing more that we could really improve on. This has been a long time, a lot of different layouts. Popeyes is looking for an approval tonight. If there's more traffic concerns, and that's what we thought we were here for tonight, regarding any traffic, we understand we still need to get approval from DOT. But we're looking for your support and we're looking to move this forward.
Thank you, Anthony.
Thank you.
I think at this point, we've had I think a pretty, extensive discussion of these items. Kind of when I look back at my notes, and I do appreciate the idea that that the bypass has been researched. I also kind of am mindful that it's probably kind of an important component. It would be helpful to see what those are. And I don't think anybody doubts that. And it's a pretty small site. But we also talked about the left turn issue, that the kind of textbook versus the real life, and at least getting that data on there. And I think based on what we know of that site as community members, as well as what we've heard from people who live around the site, and making sure that those concerns are being listened to and addressed, I want to make sure that we have that data. I don't know how we can move forward without really seeing that more clearly. And then there was also the question of the trash removal and how that could impact traffic on Route 9. And how that's, and that needs to be kind of illustrated, I think, a little bit more clearly than what we've seen, because we haven't really seen that illustrated. And that kind of came up in tonight's conversation. It's important. We should review it. And then, I think Peter's comment about traffic management, I don't know if that fits in as a condition or how that gives some sort of a traffic management plan. That may be less of a do now, but certainly an important comment. And all of that kind of goes in concert with the fact that we're waiting for DOT, which is probably looking at a lot of the exact same issues. So I think it would be helpful for us as a board to have DOT saying, yeah, we looked at the same thing, we all drew the same conclusions, so that there's no kind of variation between what we're saying and what DOT is saying, and that we have a site plan that kind of is married and gets approved once and works. So I think based on the information that I've heard and that we have, from my perspective, I'm kind of thinking that's what we should see. And I don't know if there are any other kind of board. Yeah.
I have one question that's actually not related to the traffic, but going back to the signage and wondering whether, I think you mentioned that you were going to have a separate, variance appeal regarding the signage on the third wall, and I'm just asking as the board, can we approve bar without, actually seeing all the signage? I mean, do we feel like we need to see that signage? I know that it's been approved by the ZBA, or can we move ahead without that?
Well, as part of your role as the VAR, you are considering the overall exterior of the building. So I do think in this instance, it would be appropriate to wait and see what the ZBA has to say about the signage, because it could impact the overall design of the building. So
I mean,
that's my just.
And that's just from one side, right? The building side.
I believe, Anthony, correct me if I'm wrong, the elevations of what was gonna go before the ZBA were presented to you. The third facade had a Love That Chicken, and that was 113 square feet, and that's being taken out. And the only issue that on the third facade that we would be asking the ZBA is that small chicken logo. About how many square feet is that, Anthony? It's not very long.
Yeah, it's like, I believe it's like 10 square feet or less. It's
Yeah.
very small. It's in the top left corner of the building that's visible from the street. So people could identify the building, from the roadway.
Yeah, right, so that Love
There
That
it is.
That's coming out, that's 113 square feet, and that's actually painted on. The only thing that we would be asking, and they may not even permit it, is that chicken logo, which is
Top left.
all the way on the left side.
Okay.
And just to add, this is all the standard Popeye signage. The board has seen it at the last planning board meeting. We're not making any other changes. Right now, we're just proposing to remove that Love That Chicken in order to gain the ZBA support.
Just want to make a comment that I think Anthony's right. This is an improvement to the site. My big concern is traffic. I just want to make sure we spend ample time on it and we flush out any of the questions we still have remaining, like the gaps making the left turn. Just flush it out a little more, get the OT approval. Traffic for me is just a big concern, that big outlier right now.
Well, we don't know when we're gonna get the DOT, I mean, it could be months, right?
Yeah, that's correct. And I was just kind of making a little bit of a punch list here, just because we did cover some different things, but it was investigate the garbage access, investigate the gap analysis, site distance for the driveways, and then we'll also investigate the traffic management plan.
And
Is that
gaps? Yes.
Yeah.
And I think just bringing to the table the research that's been done on the.
Oh, the iteration.
We've already documented,
You want evidence that the bypass is not feasible on this, because the building is so small compared to even what.
Yeah.
Producing the work that's been done, it was, requested by our consultant and it's come up, and I think it's really just documentary for us, just to know that this has been asked, looked at, and.
Not a problem. We'll gladly supply all the concepts. We even had the ankle stalls trying to get that bypass and it just didn't work.
Okay, so I guess at this point, we can, actually, we just go back to Valerie and Tony. Where are we? Is there anything we haven't really asked tonight at this point?
From no, nothing at this point. It was really mostly traffic.
Okay.
Just the final remaining things for us with the agreements for the stormwater, it sounds like.
Yeah,
got
yeah.
that in
We
motion,
have to review the yes.
and the DOT approval, getting all documentation of that. I get through that.
Okay. All right, so procedurally, can we have a motion to go into the public hearing?
Can I get a motion to open to public hearing?
Bobby Backer, second the motion.
I heard Bobby. Sorry.
I
Any objections? No objections. The motion carries. We're in a public hearing. Is there anybody in the room to speak to this application? Don't see anybody. Is there anybody on Zoom? You can use the hand raise function. And I do not see anybody. Motion to adjourn the public hearing.
Michael Aaron's a motion to adjourn the public hearing.
Carly Leo, second the motion.
Any objections? No objections. That motion carries. So I think you read out, I think your punch list is accurate. I think you guys know what we need. We're there, closed, but we certainly still have concerns that need to be heard. All right, can I have a motion to adjourn the application?
If I could just,
Yeah, sorry.
do you guys feel comfortable from bar standpoint as to what's presented, or is it?
I think, given the fact that there's still the variance that needs to be heard, and that our council advised us that we should, we should have that. And that, typically we do agree that we can try to group these, if we prove what we want, especially on the project to scale. I don't think, I could poll the board, does any board have any concerns or changes that you would suggest to the BAR based on what we've seen today in terms of project development? So, I think that we're in a good place with the BAR, but we want to make sure that we have the.
But I guess the question that I have is it necessary for us to get that final zoning board approval before we come back here? Okay, or can it be,
So I don't know what the time frame is for the, with the
There will
calendar
be
is for-
another ZBA meeting prior to your next planning board meeting, so
Okay,
maybe revisit this next month, and see what happens, because maybe you'll have, at that point, the ZBA approval in hand.
right, and I don't know if there's any way for them to present as options to the public record what this will look like based on what they're at, the modifications after post CBA. So even if those are on the record, we can look at those and have those to vote on.
Right.
That would also be helpful. Even if there's, for whatever reason, it's still in process with ZBA, I don't know what that would mean, but.
Right, the difficulty, and this will, the applicant will clearly have to make that decision if they're still in the process of ZBA and you give them the VAR approval and there's any sort of change, then they end up having to come back. That's the, right.
So I think if we have, if the traffic / site plan issues are at a point next week where we feel comfortable as board to approve it, and for whatever reason, the ZBA is not done, but we have drawings that are being presented to the ZBA, being reviewed by the ZBA, we could potentially vote on it. But I think that hopefully that answers your question. Thank you. All right.
Can I just say one last thing? You guys have done really wonderful work on this application. Those were my observations, and those are just my personal comments and opinions, and I understand, you're working within your own parameters, but I think you've presented a good application.
Thanks, sir. All right, a motion to adjourn the item.
Michael Lawrence, motion to adjourn the item.
Robbie Backer, second the motion.
Any objections? Objections? All right, thank you.
Have a great holiday.
Okay.
Thanks, Peter.
Bye-bye.
So do we have 80 Main next on the, or is it-
Adjourn.
is it adjourned? Yeah. All right, so 80 Main is adjourned. So I guess the final item tonight is 171 Croton Avenue. So this is site plan VAR for the second floor addition and creating a mixed-use building. So if we can bring the applicant up.
I think it's Mr. Bonfiglio.
Okay. Yeah. And I guess while Mr. Bonfiglio is coming up, I don't know, Valerie, do you want to run through your comments on this? Because I know it's a continuing item, so.
Yeah, so this particular project, this, this project is an unlisted action under seeker, but they have not submitted environmental assessment forms, so that one needs to be done before we can move forward on seeker. I think really the biggest issue, that we had last, month, or actually a couple months ago, and I think this really involved just holistically, was the parking and loading area, as well as confirmation that the applicant meets the other components of the zoning code, including unit sizes, as well as, you wanted more information on lighting, trash, and recycling. So just, I think overall, I think this particular project tonight needs just looking at the site plan and providing the applicant feedback, and then still there's gaps that the applicant needs to provide the board.
Okay. Maybe, Tony, would this now be a good time, or do you want to maybe go through your comments now or after they present?
Well, we could do it after.
Okay. Okay. So, Mr. Bonfiglio, you are here with us. So I don't know if you want to run through, kind of give us an update on on where you are, and we can put the drawings up on the screen.
Sure. I think Pat may be a little bit better, being that he's working on the plans here.
Sounds good.
Yeah, so what you see here is a revised plan of the site. Showing a handicap spot, the plantings, the planting schedule. It's under legend. You've got pictures of the types of plants as well. Some of the details involved with the ramp and the concrete walk. Those things that were all noted as necessary on the drawings. Also showed a maneuverability plan for that questionable space number 4. Yeah, and then one of the comments was about the garbage container. I gotta apologize, I didn't realize that we had public carting. We will be not using the 5-yard container. We'll be using the 95-pound rollouts so that they will come out, assigned certain, one for each apartment, one for each store, and they'll roll them out to the curb and roll them back when the garbage day is.
Is that?
Who's gonna roll them out, the tenants? Occupants?
Sorry?
Who's gonna roll out the garbage at, assigned pickup days?
I would assume that whoever the tenant is for that particular apartment would have to roll out his own garbage.
Yeah, I mean, whomever is managing the building will be rolling out the garbage.
There you go.
I thought it would have to be private.
Yeah, that's the question. That was kind of where I was going. So that's, I'm just trying to see how that would be to have, and I apologize. How many units are being proposed up
2.
there?
2 units.
That's a concern. Just to have that trash being managed into individual cans on the public ground. I think given this development, we would imagine, we would want this to be a private carting.
Why is that? What's just out of curiosity, sheer curiosity? What dictates private sanitation versus public sanitation, being a taxpayer there?
The density on the site, I mean,
Density of the multiple uses of the building.
right.
I mean, you have two single bedroom apartments, and you have 2 small storefront spaces, I believe totaling, I don't know, 700 square feet, I believe.
A little bit over 700 square feet, yep.
I mean, it's not like, an apartment building.
It's a multifamily residential building with commercial on the ground floor. So when we're,
And you don't have, you were proposing two-bedroom apartments.
Yeah.
No, that was
revised. That was revised on the last drawing. So the drawings depict, the revised drawings depict the apartments as 1-bedroom units.
they're the same size, less 1 bedroom.
Yeah.
Is there an office or like a rec area in there, the same size? What happens to that second bedroom? Does it get opened up into the common space?
Well, the apartments was shy space for dining, so we moved the living room into the other bedroom space, and then added that other space into dining. So that now they have room for dining and living all together.
Those are floor plans, okay.
All right, sorry. I think before the room sizes didn't meet the habitable room requirements, is that correct? When it was.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think one of the other comments was the retail space, I guess, fell short based on the definition of the NC2 district. So we added the additional commercial space downstairs.
We go back to the site plan and we just kind of talk about the parking and the maneuvering. I know we kind of that parlayed into the trash conversation pretty quickly, but I think the perhaps more salient was just how the parking will work in real life here. I mean, I don't know how many point turn that is to get into that one spot. I mean, this looks super
To
tricky.
get in, it's easy. It's straight in. But to back out, it's a 4-point maneuver.
I just want to make note, those 3 spaces in front of the garage are 14%, which is unacceptable. The spaces in front of the
Agreed.
parking, the 3 spaces, they're on a 14% slope.
It's steep.
Oh, wow.
It's
Yeah.
steep.
And you can quite see it by their shots. If you look at the body on top, the 88.5 and then the 86, that's the height difference in those. They're ramping up to that garage space. And on top of it, you're gonna have 2 of those spaces are gonna be blocked. So,
On the top, because the 2 of those spots are on the interior.
yeah, so
Do we want to go back to the Google map? I think that was helpful.
Yeah.
in regard
To this, like the street view.
in regards to the parking count, I don't know if you can count 2 spots that may be blocked at certain times. People are inside the building.
Right.
Say that again?
The 2 spots that are inside the building are gonna be blocked, so I don't know if you can count that as parking, because what if the people can't get in there?
So in the code, it says that you could park interior and then an exterior spot outside is perfectly acceptable.
Blocking the other 2?
Yeah, and the building official looked at it and said that that was okay as well.
So that's
Complies to the section of the code. I parking behind each garage, 270-30A2.
I could see that working if both people live in the same unit, but not if they live in different units. There's no way that's gonna be coordinated.
You can condition, tandem parking. on
And I mean, like, yes,
units being
and they have to coordinate with each other when they move in and out, but
I just thought it was a concern with all the parking issues on this. If somebody can't find a spot, they're gonna look somewhere else. If they can't, I don't feel like asking this guy right now to move. To
Right.
get into the garage, let me just go park out in the street. I just know it's a big issue that people have mentioned at this corner.
Well, but it's right, I mean, we've identified 3 issues with the same spot. So number 1, we've got the slope. Number 2, we've got the interior spot, which is blocked by the first one. Number 3, getting out of either of them requires this multi-point removal maneuver. So, I mean, that's,
Oh, getting out of either of them, multiple point. When you pull into a parking space, do you not back up and then turn out?
I'm just responding to
The 2 that are on the 2 in front of the garage doors are normal spots. They're very easy to get in and out of.
Yeah, those.
but if you look at, when I say both, I mean, the ones that are back to back, because you get your car in the garage, right? So it's kind of like,
Okay, again, I'll say 270-30A2 in your code says that that's allowable.
it is, well, I mean, if it is, how in practical terms are you going to program it so that it's functional? So that the people who use them correctly. It's not like you have a sea of parking lot there, you have a very tight spot.
Understood.
Cars, but how, it's just, it's, you can use it, but how does it work? How is it programmed?
And
What is the delineation of spots? The single bedroom apartments require how many spots? One
1.25.
spot?
1.25, 1.25 for each apartment.
1.25. Okay, so 1.25.
We need 2.5 cars for the.
So if you're designated 2 spots to 1 apartment, and then I mean, I don't know, I'm just thinking out loud here. You have 2 businesses that are next to each other. I mean, if they communicate, or if one of the apartments has 2 vehicles, they could park tandem.
Yeah, absolutely, it's a possibility.
Yeah, but let's not forget for section 270-36 of the village code, the maximum slope within a parking area shall not exceed 5%. You still got those 3 spaces at 14%.
Okay, something we have to address.
right, and I also just want to be clear, we're looking at a site plan to see how this works on this site in this neighborhood. And I think what we're trying to do is identify concerns that we have with how this parking is being presented to us. And and understanding, right, if this parking doesn't work and somebody's, decides to, all right, I'm just gonna park on the street because it's a lot easier, that's already, you know, I think that we've identified that the street parking, you know, along this stretch of that road is difficult and problematic, and it's gonna kind of create spillover. You know, part of our process right now is to look at this site plan as an opportunity to make things better, right? To make it easier for, you know, the people who live there and, you know, for the businesses, you know, that will occupy the space that you're presenting to, you know, to kind of operate within the site without creating other problems. We're identifying a potential external problem based on the way that parking is being presented.
Understood, but the other lots that are down the road that are previously under construction don't have the same situation?
Every project that comes before this board.
That's what I figured. That's what I figured. So if we comply according to what the code's saying, I don't understand. If your code says that we could do something and you're telling me that we can't because there's a situation that allows somebody to choose not to park in the lot, then that's a choice. That's not a requirement. So you can't control a choice.
I think that the board could control how intensive a site is used in order to accommodate parking that people would be willing to park at, right? So I think what they're trying to sense is, they're trying to look at how that site is being used and the maneuverability of the site.
Okay, can I ask another just practical question? So if there's somebody there that isn't handicapped per se, could they not use the handicapped spot? Or is that only, that has to be vacant unless it's somebody that is handicapped? Is that what is written? Like, is that how this works?
That's state law. You have to provide a handicap space. And while we're talking about handicap, I'll just note that your handicap space is the furthest spot from the structure. And you have to make sure that you have a full route to the building, complying with all the ADA requirements of no more than 2% cross slope, running slopes. So that all has to be documented. But you have to not, you know, occupy a handicap space.
Okay. All right, so it sounds like we have a couple of challenges. All right. So the parking seems to be the challenge here.
Yeah,
to
I
speak,
think
right?
that's parking is something that we've identified as an important concern. And, you know, and I don't want to kind of poo-poo the whole, you know, we're talking about, you're making the argument that everything is code compliant. We are looking at this in a more holistic way, but it's not all code compliant because our consultant has just told us that the slope of the parking is not compliant. So I think there's kind of very.
That's a different situation than allotment of spots.
And I think we were just that was just identified to us in a letter from the consultant from the village, I think 2 days ago. So I don't think we had time to rectify that on paper. But it was brought to our attention, not yesterday, I think the day before. So it is something that we discussed and we're working on.
Yep.
So I think by next meeting, hopefully we have some kind of a resolve there. We have to deal with that slope and the ADA compliancy and the parking in general.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Okay. Is there any other kind of I don't know, sticking points on this project?
If you were looking something up right now, or
Yeah, no, I mean, I think just a couple other things. One, your lighting plan, you need to take a look at the lighting because it does, it does encroach on some neighboring properties beyond the code. And then the other thing is you have this electrical pole there, and right now I think it's the location of that pole is actually going to be, I think they're showing it.
Oh, in the sidewalk right there?
It is going to be
One on the sidewalk, yeah, it's up a little bit further. Yeah, right there. See it right there?
No.
oh, is that like near the U and up?
The UP, see UP? There's a little box under it with the grade
right.
Yes.
at the corner edge of the building. Yeah, there it is.
And what services do it?
Right now it's well, it looks like in In the Google, like in the image, it looks like it's an electrical pole, maybe has a street light associated with it as well as.
I mean, I don't think there's a street light.
Yeah, that's got service on it.
Yeah.
And is there like clearance there for the sidewalk and for a wheelchair to kind of maneuver around that?
So yeah, there's at least 6 feet there next to from the out edge of the pole to the wall. But the pole is in a very awkward place, to be totally honest with you.
I think that pole has the pre-existing service still mounted to it, but I believe it's been cut, if I'm not mistaken. If you could bring up the Google view again, the street view, we might be able to get a shot of it.
I'm not sharing that now.
I think not. I think only we're looking at that.
Hold on.
Right.
Yeah, see, I believe that service going to the pole, I believe is dead. If you scroll up, if you go down.
Yeah, there's
Yeah,
no
that's-
connection to the building.
Yep, no, that's. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure, I guess,
The building connection actually comes in by the yeah,
so
there
that's
it
the
is
old
right
service.
there.
You can
So
see it
that's
there.
a
Yep,
different
yep.
line, yeah.
Yeah, that's the old service meter. So I'm assuming the you know, Con Edison would want to have a new point of entry anyway, but I'm not even sure that pole needs to be there. I mean, I don't quote me on that. I don't know, but that service there is definitely dead.
We're just going across the street.
It'd be good just to have that at least dimensioned, you know, if it has to stay dimensioned, and so we understand what the sidewalk width is as it goes around there. Because that's, I guess, the only way from the parking lot to the
Yeah.
building.
So we need to call Con Edison to discuss that with them?
You'll have to notify them because you're doing work within so many feet of the pole anyhow, and maybe
Mhm.
determine what, if any service is still being provided by that pole.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Have you take the number on the pole and submit it. I haven't done it with Con Edison, but I did it with another utility recently.
Tony, have we touched on all of your comments at this point through the conversation?
The only other comments I believe, is the may need a variance for the distance of, the blacktop or loading docks must be at least 2 feet away from the property line.
Mhm.
And foot buffer from a residential, in the back parking lot.
So there's the residential is behind the parking lot behind us.
It's
further over that.
It is.
But it's a residential district on that property
Yeah,
line,
that's what
no?
I thought.
Yeah,
That's why I think we know.
that property, that's your NC, but the property line separates you from, I don't know if that's S75 or what's on the other side.
Yeah, so we noted that 10-foot buffer in the parking lot.
Is that really? I don't know, I didn't see that. I'll check, okay.
Which there's a residential district adjoining our lot, you're saying?
There is a residential.
There is, right? Yeah.
I believe, because we
Well,
actually.
there's a parking lot. There's the parking lot, the huge parking lot. I don't see that as residential. The parking lot to the building that is just, I guess that would be east of us, going up Croton Avenue. That large building that has Delgado's Deli and I think there's a tanning salon there, and that parking lot behind it belongs to that building. So I can't see that as being residential.
Joining residential. area.
Yeah, you could see there's the line is behind us and on the edge of the parking lot, the property next to us.
I think that corner right there is barren. Any screening would make that place look better. Well, the appropriate screening.
So that's, oh yeah. Yeah, no, we just zoom in on that intersection. you can see
Right,
there-
so I think this is
Yeah.
their property,
yeah.
and then the other property does reference.
All right, so there's not north of that. Take
Yeah,
that off.
no, that's-
Apologize for that.
You guys are right.
Yeah.
But
Okay,
it's pretty.
that was helpful.
What was the answer? I'm sorry.
The property next door has a dog leg on it that goes, so it's actually, it does not abut a residential
Okay.
district. It's
No.
full surrounded.
But the other one does the 2-foot setback.
The 2-foot setback still, okay, so that needs to be.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I saw that yesterday when I got the letter. So we'll address that.
I'm sorry, we didn't really, are there any changes to the elevations other than? We didn't really talk about that, and I don't wanna.
So yeah, so the elevations, we added brick to the facade in the front face on
Croton Avenue.
on Croton Avenue, sorry, yeah. So, yeah, we added brick to that facade. The rest of it's going to, we took away the hardy board. It's mostly stucco. The rest of the building. We're thinking gray, light gray tones. Yeah, you could see that the difference in what it was before with the clapboards and the horizontal lines.
These are really hard to read and kind of understand materially.
Yeah.
So okay, these are.
Okay. Oh, okay.
But they're still, yeah, these are not easy to understand, and I mean, I would just even comment that brick patterning relative to what I'm assuming is stucco seems like an odd choice. I don't know. Yeah,
I agree. Yeah, I think there's some really nice elements of the original building, although it's pretty modest that I'm not an architect, but there's probably something you could pull from there and.
Maybe just for the.
The
maybe just
original
for the
garage
continuity.
building. Are we talking the original garage building?
Just mean like, look at the size of the openings, look at the proportions of it. I'm not telling you what to do, I'm just saying what appears now looks to me less attractive than what is existing. That's just my personal opinion, but
okay,
there's something to work with in that existing building. There is some inherent, functionality and qualities in that concrete block building that has these garage doors. And you could make it into a nice residence, but I don't think that looks like a nice residence.
Yeah, I think it would be helpful, obviously, to see renderings, to see color, texture. And the landscaping and the site plan fleshed out more in terms of how people are gonna navigate from the parking around to the front of the building.
yeah. This is a very challenging project, right? It's a narrow site. You're putting a bunch of different things on there. And I think almost every single comment we've had kind of speaks to, and there's a slope on it, and there's an existing building that you're retrofitting, right? So all of these things are challenges. And I don't know that really any of them right now are at a point of any kind of resolution. So I think, I think if there's a commonality between all the comments that we put out there, kind of taking a step back and kind of understanding how this project works on this site from, parking, from, site plan circulation, and then kind of how it, how it's going to look. It's just, I feel like we're not at a point where we really understand that at all, in terms of how you're taking this existing building and turning it into the building that you're imagining. I think we need to see development on both of those fronts. I am happy. I want to note, the fact that you added the second storefront on, facing Croton Avenue. I think that's, I think that's helpful. I think that even kind of reads in the facade, and there's kind of a symmetry to the program and to how it will look. And then, there's kind of more potential for public engagement with the building, which I think is good. But I think there's still a lot to work out. Other board comments?
No, I think everybody said, yeah.
Summarized it well.
All right, could we have a motion just to open the public hearing?
Michael Aronson, motion to open a public hearing.
Hallelujah, second the motion.
Any objections? No objections. Is there anybody here to speak to this application? And if you see we have somebody. So as we said in prior applications, kind of introduce yourself. And then
Dennis Santucci, I'm 173 Croton Avenue, Delgado's Deli, the parking lot you're talking about. Parking.
Back of the building, how wide is the back of the building?
So, and again, I think as we've said on prior applications, to address your questions to us as a board, and we'll note the questions we may not have answers right away.
How wide is the back of the building?
I don't know the best way, I guess. Pull the plan up there, we can.
Right there.
There's a
Let's figure the-
dimension site plan.
Well, you figure the spaces are 9 wide, 9, 18, 27 feet. Is it on or about? I'm
There
just
you
looking
go.
at this parking.
Yeah,
space.
no, that works, that's probably the best way to do it.
Maybe 30 at the width of the wall.
So how many feet is it?
27, about 30 feet, about 30.
30 feet, 27 feet, was it 27 or 30 feet? Makes a difference. 9 by 18 is a normal parking space.
29'4".
What, excuse me?
29'4".
When you have the stone wall there to the, if I'm looking at it right now, it's to the right. So when that,
The stone wall's on your property.
it's on my property, correct?
I think if you can give your kind of overall feedback, I think
When
we
you
get, I
make
want to get stuck.
parking number 3, 4, you can't really make that swing without hitting the stone wall. So therefore, you only really have 2.5 parkings if you want to count the parkings in front of the garage. The parking that's this parallel parking that you're doing 5 turns here to get in, you're within an inch of parking number 4, if you look on the map. It just doesn't work. If that car is back a little bit, you're not getting in there. What is the issue with, you have 4 or 5 parking spots in the front of the building. You're talking about an addition to the front of the building. It's an existing situation. Why couldn't you make a nice building? I'm not opposed to you doing a development, adding to the building, but why couldn't you do something nice with some parking in the front and maybe 1 or 2 parkings in the back and the garbage, whatever? Why do you have to overbuild a 5,000 square foot lot? That's the board.
Yeah, no, understood. We understand your comment.
Okay.
This is not an answer, it is, we're listening to your comment as a concern.
Elevation 8.8,
We appreciate that.
the elevations on the front of the building. 8.8, can we pull that?
Keep going. Yeah,
Faster.
I'm not a mapsmith, okay, you guys, I'm doing my best.
Keep going on the elevation. Why don't you continue while she's
Yeah.
doing that? And you just, there you go, stop.
All right.
That's not it.
No, there's one that shows the block.
There's one showing my building.
Ah,
There you go.
Okay, all right, there. It seems to me that when you are push come to shove and you're finished, your new construction is gonna be about 7 feet taller than my building. On your diagram now, you're looking at a nice clean line, but it doesn't seem to me that it'll ever work that way. So, that's a consideration.
Sure.
Number 3, when you pull this building out to the line of my building, right now, when you turn on to Sherman, there's a lot of sight distance. When you pull this thing right out to that corner, there's gonna be no more sight distance. The crossing guard that stands there every morning and the children, they're gonna have a hard time negotiating with the sight distance. If you look at what's there now, that building is set back a little bit, and the service station to the left side of, both set back a little bit. And it gives a nice wide entrance to Sherman, and it's a very busy intersection anyway. The developer really has no hardship here. He knew what he purchased when he purchased it, with a small lot. Work with what you have on a small lot, don't overpower the whole thing. And also, you're talking about warehouse. My understanding, it's a B2 zone, well, now you call it a NC zone, whatever the general business. It's not for warehouse. So, we're talking about this parking and everything is based on warehouse square footage, where you're gonna need variances for that, and there goes again, there's no hardship here, there should be no reason why you need variances for anything done on this lot. And lastly, even the consulting engineer for the town, for the village, does not mention the brook that's under the building. I mean, last time I was here, I mentioned the brook in great detail. There's a brook that's under that building. Is the village willing to take the brook and bring it down Croton Avenue and down Sherman and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars? Is the village willing to look into, why the brook is under the building? It's under my building also, just a little piece of it.
I think there should be a moratorium on this development until the brook is well considered in the planning stage.
All right.
That's my comment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for being patient and staying with us for now.
Mr. Santucci, would you just mind signing in on the sheet when you have a moment?
Okay.
Sir?
so-
Sir?
Oh, yeah, there's a signage.
I did.
Oh, you did? Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
Okay, I don't see any other attendees in the meeting. Can I have a motion to adjourn the public hearing?
Eric Talbot, I make a motion to adjourn the public hearing.
Bobby Backer, second that motion.
So, I appreciate the comments that were just made. Actually, the specific, I mean, I think the parking questions were something that we've talked at length about and the utility of the lot as it's currently presented. I would also just, I think that the relation, I don't know that we're at a point right now in the BAR to even talk about how this relates to the building next door, because I don't think it's developed enough. But that height and scale of relationship is obviously something you guys should be attending to, as this, is developed. So, I think, is there anything between, Tony, Matt, and Valerie that we haven't talked about? We covered everything.
No, I think you covered.
Okay, I think, we're good. So we have our marching orders. Can we have a motion to adjourn this item this evening?
Michael Aronson, motion to adjourn the item.
Bill Moran, second.
Any objections? There are no objections, so that item is adjourned. So thank you guys very much. I think hopefully it's clear where you need to go next. We're gonna, I think just, I don't know if there's any, that was the last active item. I know we have to adjourn. Are there any items on here, that we have kind of, I would say, critical updates on?
No.
Okay.
None, we're still waiting on, at some point next month, we'll probably come back to you with some of these applications that have been just on your agenda for a number of months that you might want to consider, us contacting the applicant and letting them know that if they don't submit, they will be removed.
Yeah, we're carrying six
Right.
adjourned items right now, which is quite a few, so. Actually 7 at 80 Main Street, though, I know that we've been actively discussing that one.
We have, just let you know, we have been in touch with these various applicants, to kind of say like where we
Yeah.
or you need this additional information, or you need to get to the ZBA, so have you
Okay,
please apply, so, but we'll update you next month.
That, yeah, let's-
Any progress on
we'll
any
walk
of that.
through that. Maybe we can even do that at the top of next meeting,
Sure.
just kind of a quick rundown down of where those are, so we can decide if there are any projects that shouldn't be on the agenda anymore.
Hopefully they won't be here.
And hopefully they'll all be here.
Right.
That would be great. So, okay, can I have a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting?
Bill Moran, motion to adjourn.
Michael Aronson, second.
Any objections? Objections? We're good. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Good night, Jamie. Thank you.
Have a good
Thanks,
holiday.
Amy. Yeah, have a great holiday.
It's right before